Welcome to Sex and Happiness with Laurie Handers. Amazing sex and intimacy are just around the corner. While Laurie puts the finishing touches on her new book, Sex and Happiness Over 60, please enjoy this show. It's one of her favorites from the Sex and Happiness archives.
Have you ever wondered what it might like to be the opposite gender? I imagine most people at one point or other say things to themselves, of course in their own head, like, I wish I was a man, they seem to rule the planet. Or, I wish I were a woman, they get to dress up, be pretty, and get taken care of. You know, the typical stereotypes that can be conjured about being what we're not. But what about actually changing your gender through a series of sex change operations known as gender reassignment? What about when someone actually does change? What does this involve, and what happens to them? My guest today is Millie Knox, a person who was born a man and had herself, or I guess himself then, changed into a woman. Millie spends her time teaching workshops on healing and the Kabbalah and Tantra. She's greatly known to the pagan community on the East Coast of the United States through her teaching at many festivals. Millie and I met in something like 1994, and today she's here to tell me and you her story. Hi, Millie. So glad to have you, and I want to hear the scoop. I want to also mention here, and I'll mention it again, too, that you're the star of a film. Well, actually, your life is the star of a film called Soulmates Movie, the Soulmates Movie, or Soulmates, and people can find out about it at soulmatesmovie.com. I wanted to say that because your life is extraordinary, and I want to hear all about it right now, and people can follow up by going to the website and finding out more about the film based on your life. So what is it like? How did this happen? When did you notice that you were a guy and you didn't want to be a guy anymore? Because I know you've been through the whole gamut, the family, children, everything. So when did you first know, Millie?
Well, I kind of knew when I was a child. I used to spend my summers with my grandmother, and I think she knew. She used to make me little smocks and let me grow my hair out. And they even came up with a name for me. She called me Amethyst because I liked purple.
That's true.
And I remember one time when I was 8, I was always, doing tea parties with the girls in my neighborhood and dressing up in mommy's clothes. And I remember one time my mother dragging me down the street by my ear, hollering loudly about what a pervert she had in her family. I think it was then I found out it really wasn't okay for me to be a girl.
Right. Well, she gave birth what she thought to was a boy, and for all intents and purposes, you were in a boy's body, but you didn't feel a boy. You didn't feel to be a boy.
No, never. And it was quite fine with me to just hang out with the girls until, I was about 11 or 12, and all my girlfriends started getting interested in boys. And then I was kind of left out because I didn't get along with the boys that well.
Sure.
And the girls were interested in other things than I was. It wasn't okay for me to be interested in boys. It wasn't okay with them.
It could have cost you your life. I mean, luckily it didn't, but you could have been very not like you're any kind of sissy. You're not.
Well, I do remember one time early in transition.
I could see that if you got interested in boys.
I was early in transition. Back when I transitioned, you had to live as a woman and dress as a woman full time for a year before they would even give you hormones. So basically, I was a guy in a dress for a while. And I was at this gas station in Fairfax, gassing up my car, and this truck full of guys carrying motorcycles in the back of their truck pulled up to gas up, and then they looked over at me and were going whistling and catcalling, and then they realized that I was a guy, and one of them came over and stuck a gun in my mouth and said, "Give me a good reason why I shouldn't pull this trigger." Well, thankfully his friends pulled him off of me. I went home. I locked myself in my apartment. I didn't go out again for 5 days.
Yeah, I can't blame you.
It was kind of dangerous back then.
Yeah, very dangerous. Now, but you were destined to go through with it. I mean, you knew you had to. It was your destiny, yeah?
It just seemed like the next right thing to do.
Right. Now,
It wasn't a great big, yeah?
Were you still, tell us, the interesting part for me is that you were married to a woman as a guy. You were a guy, even though you didn't really want to play that role. You were a guy and you've had a couple of children. So where in your life did this transition, what did you say to her? Now I want to start wearing women's clothes. I mean, I've seen that. It's not so foreign to me now. And actually, when I met you in 1994, it wasn't foreign to me then either. And you were about the best thing that happened to me in those years. You know what I mean? It was like meeting you.
That's wonderful.
So meeting you was like meeting a breath of fresh air. Somebody who had been through the mill and no pun intended, Millie. Somebody who had been through the mill and who could feel the depths of feeling for other human beings. I mean, that's who you are. I
think I just started getting softer and gentler. It sort of happened gradually. I started wearing soft fabrics. And I started dressing gentler and softer, and then my whole nature changed. And my wife at the time, she knew I was crazy anyway, but she didn't think I was this crazy. And when I started being interested in men, she decided that, this isn't going to work for her. And so she moved out, and we both got one-bedroom apartments right down the street from each other. And we started being like best friends. And when she had an issue come up, or she was in trouble, or she had to make a decision, she would come over and talk to me. And when I did, I would go over and talk to her. So we had that kind of a relationship. And
the kids? What about your kids? I mean,
surgery,
who did they stay with the most, or did you do a split custody? And how did they adjust to this? I have to ask you many questions about how you adjusted.
It's fine. My children.
Yeah. Yeah.
They stayed with me part of the time and stayed with her part of the time. We just worked out a schedule.
And they
we sat the children down and said,
explain it to them?
This is what's going on. And they didn't care as long as they could be with me. They didn't care.
That's pretty great.
As they got older, it started bothering them. But because I remember one time we were all at the Burger King, and I was correcting the little one, and he went, "Dad!" And everybody in the restaurant looked at my wife.
I imagine that was tough. I mean, it was probably mortifying to a certain extent for your wife and for you, at that time. To be busted like that,
Yeah, my wife at the time, she lost, the perfect man, she thought. I mean, I worshiped the ground she walked on. I treated her superbly. I was the best lover she had ever known. I was handsome as all get out.
I imagine.
She was really pissed that she had to let go of Ernie.
Right.
She was really pissed.
Right.
And we even had a funeral for Ernie, so to kind of help her get through the grief.
And how was that? You staged like a ritual?
Yeah. We decided we had a little coffin. We dug a hole. We had candles. Everybody dressed up. I spoke a eulogy, and then she spoke a eulogy, and we said goodbye, and that's kind of how it was.
Mm.
It was like saying goodbye to a part of me, the part where I had to try to be who everybody else wanted me to be, and saying hello to me, really.
Yeah, there's definitely no question about who you are. It's there's not. It's amazing. It's an amazing process. Did you seek counseling and help in this transition, like before you even started to dress in women's clothing, or did you just start doing it and then get help? Or, I'm asking you this because there might be somebody listening who's right in the same situation, and I know there's more possibilities today than there was then. How many years ago did this happen?
It happened in 95.
In 95.
Surgery did. I started my transition in 1992.
Okay. So I must have met you just right then.
Yeah, it was right at the beginning.
Yeah.
When all I had to do was get up in the morning and look in the mirror, and I was happy. Everything else was just gravy.
Not many people can say that they just look in the mirror and they're happy.
It's kind of like that today. I get up in the morning, and the first thing I do is I have this full-length mirror. I go stand in front of it, and I go, today, I love you, and I get to be me today. And everything else that happens in the day is just extra.
Yeah.
I never had an experience before of being who I was. Some people, earth people, I call them, they get to be that way, and they've been that way their whole lives. And
and they don't appreciate it.
Now did that.
But here's the thing, they don't even appreciate it. They're like that every day, what you wanted, and they look in the mirror and they go, oh, I'm fat. Oh, I don't like my thighs. I mean, I do it. I go, oh, I don't like my thighs. or wow, the skin on my arms is a little this or a little that, or, oh, I have one blemish on my face. I can really hear you, that you look in the mirror every day and go, I love you. I'm so happy to be here in this body now.
I know I am. People work, I get to be, because I work on construction sites sometimes. And I'm out there on the construction site, and I'm usually get my way. And I'm not, and sometimes I have to be not so nice to get my way.
Right.
And somebody will say, you bitch. And I go, oh, thank you. They don't know what to say.
That's great. That's great. Tell me a little bit about, your own emotional transition, how you actually let go of your old life.
Well, there was counseling.
Was it any good? Was it any good?
Well, at the time, in 1992, you had to have two sex change therapists recommend you for surgery. And they had to have enough sessions with you before they would do that. And they required 4 or 5 sessions. So I went 4 or 5 months to one person and then 4 or 5 months to another person. But the second person I went to, after the second session, he said to me, Well, here's what I want you to do.